Good, good evening, everyone. My name is Shubham Singh. I'm a second year student at JP Institute of Information Technology, and today we have Ayush Singh, UI engineer at Flipkart, to talk about his experience as a front end developer. Good evening, sir. First of all, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude from DSC JIT 128. In today's session, we have the opportunity of engaging with Ayush sir about his industrial experience as a front-end web developer. We have a bank of questions prepared that we are going to discuss on, and we encourage all of you to please feel free to post your questions in the chat box. Before we get started, sir, can you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Shubham. Hey everyone, this is Ayush. Thanks for joining in. From a very early age, I found my passion into creating front-end applications, be it UI, UX, and web user interfaces. I was like 15 when I created my first web page, so that was kind of a passion which was driving me.
Wow.
And the turning point for my career was when I became a part of college R&D cell back in 2016. So that was like living to the dream when I actually got to work on industry grade projects for the very first time in my life. That I believe has been the forefront for my career and has given a lot of direction to me. Currently, I'm working at Flipkart, where I'm part of Flipkart wholesale team. We manage the consumer app side of changes, wherein I am taking responsibility of creating incubating a product from the scratch, and I do have over 2 years of experience. So yeah, that has been pretty much my journey so far. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the introduction, sir. Now let's get started. Sir, since we have a lot of first year students with us, for their benefit, can you tell us how to start journey as a UI engineer from scratch?
Sure. Thanks, Shubham. And I think this is the very important question. Again, out of all the questions do have, so I think starting a journey, I think is pretty intimidating for everyone because again, you don't know how things are going to be. So for that, I have devised a plan actually. I myself was going through this journey altogether for past 5 6 years, and it has played out really well in my career, I would say. So, yep, I'll quickly share my screen and probably we can go ahead from there.
Sure, sir.
All right, just let me know if my screen is visible. I can go ahead.
Y- yes, sir, it is.
Sure. All right, so a little bit of deck I have prepared for presenting to all of you, and I have found it really helpful. I've shared it with a lot of people, and they have gotten really good results with their career aspirations as well as a front end engineer. So I think as a front end engineer, resources are pretty much outdated or either missing because I see a lot of industry shift towards SD as the primary driver for all the people who are looking out for a job. So I think front end engineering is equally important. I think, and in fact, it's really fun to do as well. So if you find this really it's if you find this something that you want to pursue in your career or if you find it interesting, so this is for you. All right, so I'll quickly move to the next slide. There's a little bit about me. So I've graduated in 2019. Also, as a side note, I am a bit fitness junkie. So if you want to know a little bit about that, so you can hit me up offline. Again, like DSC, I was part of students chapter in my college, but that was software incubator. So I was leading that department and
Yes.
perhaps was the turning point for my career because again got a lot of industry experience from there. Yep. Also, as a side note, I have been a recognized themer at XG Developers. So that is a website for all your Android related queries, and perhaps I developed custom ROMs and Android applications back in 2014. So yeah. Okay, I do have 2.5 years of experience. I've worked in both UI, UX, and front end domains. So front end being my primary domain, but I do love UI, UX as well. So yeah. And also I'm really lucky to actually have incubated 3 4 products right from the scratch. So again, because I was a part of startups as well, so that has played out really well. All right. And why you should listen to me? Well, obviously, this comes the very first question, because you should be finding this content engaging. So, number one, I want you to succeed, because I have seen a lot of failures myself. So, I know what things work out and what things do not work out. So, this guide can hopefully help you land your dream job. All right. And I have also done a couple of unpaid internships, because, again, I was not aware, because I haven't, I would say at that time, at that moment, I did not have enough experiences to know how to actually apply for internships and how to approach towards this corporate life. So I've done a lot of unpaid internships, unprofessional, in a very unprofessional manner as well. So that is something to note over here. All right, so I have a pointer to make over here, that 2022 is the best year to be alive. Again, I will back this up with a couple of statements that I do have. So, number one being that owing to the current situation, we are all logged into our homes, which I think has adverse effect on all of us. But at the same time, has been a really great time to actually hunt for the jobs. And I've never seen this job market expand so widely as it is doing right now. And I think this job the tech market, actually, it's really hot right now, because I can see a lot of opportunities back then, I would say back in 2016 or 2017, when I was looking out for internships or maybe jobs. So there weren't a lot of opportunities, and mostly were coming from maybe some early stage startups or something else. But now we see a lot of bulk hiring from the tech giants as well. So be it the Fangs of the world and the other hot startups we do have. So I think they're getting a lot of funding as well. So they are actually investing a lot in the tech. And deep down, we do have a realization in the tech industry that yes, engineers are a forefront for the tech industry to drive it forward, and have been investing heavily into engineers. So yeah, that is the reason.
Well, that's a good thing that we should know that in this COVID era, still the tech industry is blooming.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, yep. And for you guys, I would say no more college lectures. You won't do not have to actually go ahead and spend a lot of time actually attending college lectures, and you are actually saving a lot of time in commute as well, because it used to be a big part of our daily habits and daily routines that we do spend a lot of time on commute. So that is being saved. And moving forward, we do see a lot of evolution in the web as well. So there's a lot of hype created around web 3.0 and everything, the NFT space, the cryptos of the world. And I think a lot of that is actually going to last for a long run, and we see a big tech shift over there as well. All right, so let's get started with the plan which I've created. Now, first and foremost, I would say the very basic and most important step out of all of this is to actually detox yourself. I see a lot of people asking me queries about how to like learn JavaScript or how to learn React for that matter. But I feel like their daily habits and their daily routines are not aligned with their aspirations. So that is where dopamine detox comes in, and I think there are a couple of ways you can tackle this out, because what happens is your brain gets used to actually getting a dopamine hit from, let's say, Netflix, or maybe you are consuming a lot of internet content, which can be a reason you feel like that you're not getting enough hit of the dopamine when you are actually studying. So in order to actually execute a plan, you should be actually detoxing yourself uh, before that. So here are a couple of pointers I think which can play out as a really helpful one. So, yep, fitness goes a long way. Fitness helps you detox yourself. So you can try that. Junk food, again, causes a lot of dopamine rush. So I think if you can perhaps avoid it for a little while, you will find yourself actually being able to focus on your work better. Also, if you have a target to set, let's say you want to achieve a certain XYZ company, so I would say envision yourself working at that dream company. That should be the motivation and primary driver for your dopamine. So you have to realign your brain to actually be able to focus on your plan. All right, moving forward, talking about the plan. So I would say key plan is very obvious and very important because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I've done it a lot of times without a plan, actually, without actually formalizing and noting down all of the things. And I would say that yes, I have failed a couple of times, and I attribute that to that failure to actually not having a plan. All right. And one thing you need to realize out of all this that this is not a sprint. You have to take all of this as a marathon. You have to inculcate atomic habits, to say the least. Uh, so this is about actually inculcating habits on a every single day to day basis. And I think these habits compound over the time. So eventually you find yourself doing big things when actually what you were doing in real was to only achieve micro habits every single day. So that is my way of looking forward to UI engineering. And again, being consistent with your plan, like it comes with anything else, I think being consistent compounds over the time. And um, I remember one really good quote that consistency beats perfection. So you do not have to be a perfectionist. So all you need to be is a consistent man with your plan. All right, moving forward, and this is a theory of awareness. Where it comes from is there is a lot of things we all live in a bubble wherein we believe that we know a lot of things, but what the reality is that we do know a very small bracket of the things out of all the possible knowledge. And the things which we don't realize that exist and we don't know, that comprises of let's say around 90% of this theory of awareness. So what happens is there is a lot of things to figure out, and if you ever feel like you are in your comfort zone, you have learned enough, then you are probably wrong with your assumption for sure.
And that's a really cool pie chart for sure.
All right, so now this is a game plan. I would say that I have jotted down with a couple of tasks, which are micro habits, I would say, or maybe a couple of actual takeaways which you can take from this lecture. So there are couple of topics I think which are really hot in terms of front end interviews, and not only front end interviews. Being a good engineer in general, I think you should know that. So let's see that. All right, so that can be again divided into some categories. So one being the JavaScript, there are a couple of UI technologies, data structures and algorithms, building a personality for acing the interviews, and practice. Sure. So game plan, I would say I've created a Notion board. Notion is like your handy tool for noting down all your tasks and all your plans. So I think that will come in very handy if you are preparing for a front end interview or just learning front end in general. And there are a couple of things I have already noted down in my Notion board, which I'll be sharing with as a shareable link. So you can go ahead and refer to that because again that comprises of all of my journey that I've gone through, and all of the micro habits and micro things, micro tasks that I've learned to actually be able to crack interviews. All right. So again, number one being JavaScript, I think is one of the most important of it all. I think JavaScript is the forefront of being a front end engineer, and there are a couple of resources where you can learn JavaScript from. And I've
So,
noted, yes,
well, I had this question that
yeah,
our viewers wanted to know that which front-end web technology is in demand in the industry. So that would
okay.
be JavaScript.
I would say there are a lot of front-end technologies because a lot of technologies come and go. But JavaScript and TypeScript are there forever because JavaScript again is again a language, not a framework as such. Because what happens is your React is a library, your Angular is a framework, and these frameworks and
Yes.
libraries come and go. We do have Next.js, we do have Remix, but all of these come and go. But I think the fundamental part of everything, the base of everything should be JavaScript. And if you know JavaScript well, as an engineer, I think it's pretty easy to move on to front end frameworks as well. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's
So
something the audience should note down. JavaScript is really important for front end.
100%. I think out of all of these things, I think JavaScript is the most important to know. Because, in fact, if you talk about React or Angular for that matter, all of these are based on JavaScript only again. And these are just the abstractions built over the JavaScript to able to actually do actions without actually imperatively declaring all the things. Sure. Now let's move to the UI technologies part. What you need to know. So there are 1,000 plus UI technologies. As I mentioned, like UI technologies come and go, and you don't have to learn all of this because I think there are a couple
That's
of
not possible.
yes, yes, 100%. And there are a couple of technologies you can move away with, and actually are really helpful as a fundamental. So let's see that. So, number one, HTML, CSS goes without saying, basics over anything, because these are the basics, and I think the most easy ones to get started. So, in my career, I would say when I was in my first or second year of college, that is when I tried to actually create a couple of pages out of HTML, CSS, and just out of curiosity, because again, that was fairly easy, I would say, because not doing it with the JavaScript and not knowing JavaScript, I think HTML CSS is really easy to get started with, and also builds a confidence that yes, you can actually do something out of this. And then
Yes,
once
HTML
you,
CSS is the forward step.
yes, I would say if you're someone is taking a first step, I would say HTML CSS is your way to go. And moving forward, I think if you once you have learned HTML, CSS, you can get started with the JavaScript. And for JavaScript, again, I will share the resources for beginners as well, and for the advanced ones as well. So once you have gone through JavaScript as well, only then you should be actually focusing on a framework or library. For that matter, would say ki you can pick up React. Again, it's kind of popular right now, and not just attributing to the popularity, but it's fairly easy, and the concepts behind it are really solid, I think. So I would really suggest all of you to actually learn React after actually learning JavaScript. For me, myself, I started with Angular actually back in 2017, but later on, I would say fairly recently, like an year ago, I actually started learning React, and I've moved to the React ecosystem right now. And it's not a big deal because it's easy to shift between frameworks and libraries once you know the core concepts behind and the ideology behind this. Because the ideology for more or less part, I think, remains the same behind any framework or library. So yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Angular uses Java, if
No,
right?
Angular it actually uses TypeScript, which is again JavaScript only. If you see it
JavaScript.
in
Okay.
layman terms, I would say it's JavaScript only. But yeah, TypeScript has its own world and all of the things. But you shouldn't be worried about that because all of the concepts you have learned otherwise in JavaScript can be applied onto Angular as well. And Angular is more or less like a very complete ecosystem of things where a lot of abstractions are built in and come in very handy. And it's I would say it can be pretty intimidating to learn at first because you have to go through a lot of syntax and a lot of new classes and abstractions which you have to learn to actually be able to write a good quality code. But once you have done that, I think it fairly becomes simple. For React, it's fairly easy. I think all you need to learn is a couple of concepts which are really important, and then you can move on to actually writing some production level React code. So I would say suggest to learn React first. And talking about fundamentals, Git goes without saying. You should know a little bit of source control management. So you can get started with Git, and for that matter, you can create your account on GitHub or Bitbucket for that matter, and you can figure out how these things work. And as an engineer, it's really good to know all of this as well. All right, moving forward. For now, I will skip this one. Let's see if anyone actually knows about this icon over here. I would like to know in the chat. Sure. Moving
Yes.
forward, yeah, Shubham, you have to say something?
No, no, sir. Please continue.
Sure. Once you have gone through all of these concepts, that is when you can move on to pretty advanced stuff. Again, if you are a beginner right now and uh, just don't get intimidated with these topics, I would say, and you can skip for later. I've seen a lot of engineers getting away without actually learning these topics, and they have landed a job. And as a fresher, I would say uh, you can land a job without actually learning these concepts as well. But once you want to actually improvise yourself and take a level up in your career, I think these topics come in handy. So there are a couple of topics: server side rendering, SSR, static site generation, and these topics. Again, I won't be covering over here because that solely deserves a lecture of its own. But these are worth noting, and also you can find the relevant notes for this on my Notion, which I'll be sharing. Okay, state management, Redux, we do have, and we do have web workers, we do have micro front ends, which are popular, and web performance as well. So these are a couple of topics to know. And I know this is intimidating at first because there are a lot of things. Trust me, you have to go through a lot of things. And initially, when you are devising out your plan, uh, it can be intimidating to know that you hit a self realization that you don't know a lot of things which you should know. But yeah, down the line, like I said, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So you can inculcate habits to actually get started onto the front end journey. Yeah, sure. I will take a more pause over here and let's see if
Yes, sir.
we can go ahead with any other questions if we have.
Yes, sir. Sure. So now that we have discussed so much, so can you enlighten us on how to build a portfolio, how to make projects? From where can we get these ideas for these projects?
Yeah, sure. So I think portfolio isn't that important, to be honest. So a lot of front end engineers can get away without actually creating a portfolio. If you are looking out for a job in UI UX design in general, or being a being on the design side rather than on engineering side, I think portfolio can really come in handy because it's very important. But yeah, as a front end engineer, the portfolio itself the is not important, but yes, doing projects is really important. And in order to do projects, I think the um, easiest way is to actually do micro projects which can shoot two birds with one stone. So what happens is you can publish those projects over your GitHub. Likewise, you can actually get to know all the front end technologies, because again, you will be uh, getting ahead with that project. Number one, and secondly, this can come in handy for creating your resume as well. So you can list down those projects. For the project ideas, I would say you can get started with a lot of things. So do what do the things that excite you the most. So for me, I would say I was pretty excited about actually seeing the web animations when I was in my college. So I wanted to create something out of it. So I actually created a couple of websites for my college events, and they were purely based out of a lot of web animation, mix and match with the web animations, and I got to learn a lot of things. I published them over my GitHub as well. And as a fresher, I did actually mention about those projects as well in my interviews, and I would say they gave me a upper hand for actually doing the projects. So yeah, do the things that excite you the most. So for someone, it could be maybe creating a clone of Facebook. For someone, it could be creating a clone of Twitter or maybe YouTube for that matter. So doesn't matter. I think the very first step is to actually get started onto this.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, I have this personal question.
Yeah.
How to know where to stop learning a specific technology? Like, for example, I'm learning JavaScript. So it's so big, it's so vast. And when do we just stop studying and start applying for internships? When do we know that we are confident? Because we have a tendency of procrastinating, saying, yeah, abhi to main पढ़ ही रहा हूँ यार, abhi मैं कैसे करूँगा? Stuff like that. How to know if you have hit that threshold?
Absolutely. I think there comes a point when you feel like you don't know enough, or maybe there comes a point when you feel like you are confident enough. And I think the greatest way to actually hit a self realization is to actually go ahead and apply for internship or maybe a job interview. So you can expect you will hit a level of realization how much you know and how much a lot of things there were. How much things were there which you otherwise would have known. So I think the way to go forward is to actually apply and show out to the world. Also, I wouldn't say you should stop learning just because you think you know enough, because there's no such thing as knowing enough. The concepts itself are very vast, but yes, for a consensus, I think there is a saturation point where you actually get a diminished returns out of learning a new thing. So for all of these things, again, I've laid out a plan, and based on that, I will be sharing my Notion link, out of which you can know exactly what is the turning point where you should be confident enough to know the topics, because it should be coming from someone who is already in the industry, so he can tell you that yes, these are the things, set of things that you should know. Because as a friend, as a fresher or maybe as a newbie, it's quite difficult to actually know what things are actually important. So yes.
So, can you share that Notion link with our audience?
Yeah, sure, I'll share it in the chat as well.
Yes, sir.
Let's see.
It would be really helpful.
Not sure I can type in the chat, but I'll share over here, so maybe
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I can take it forward.
Yes, sir. Sir, now on the subject of internships, how to apply for internships for web development? Which sites to refer? Should we do paid internships or unpaid internships? Could you share your internship experience with us? Like how to deal with failures and other stuff?
Yes, so yeah, that's a good question actually. So, and coming to the internships, so I have done a couple of internships which are actually unpaid. I've also done one internship which was around, which lasted for 2 months actually, and the stipend was only 2,000 rupees for 2 months. So that was the kind of situation I was dealing with, and I think now the situation has changed a little bit. I think the job market, again, as I attributed that, it's really hot right now. So yeah, leaving stipend aside, you can get a really good opportunities at internship as well. And the only way to actually excel in this industry is to connect with the like-minded people. So for that matter, you can connect with you should build your connections over LinkedIn. I would recommend that for sure, because that has played out really well. Once you are connected with like-minded people, you come to know that what all things you should know, and also you get in touch with them to know that a lot of internship opportunities or anything that exists. For that matter, also when I applied for internship, I used Internshala back then. Not sure. I think the picture might have changed right now. But yes, there's one website as well, referplease.com as well. Again, you can find the link. I will share the link as well over here. So this website is I really like because you can get referrals out of this from the top employees at the tech industry. So this comes in really handy, I think. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, next is a interesting question. You know, sir,
Yes.
it was a hot topic recently. There was a fight between the YouTubers on what is
Mhm.
more important, DSA or development.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Again, I won't jump into politics and debate of it, but I will tell you my perspective and what I learned in terms of DSA, what I did for in terms of development. And if you ask for TLDR, one word answer, I would say development for sure, because there are a couple of reasons I would attribute development as more important for a front end engineer, because I think doing projects actually expands your horizon for learning around the front end technologies. As I mentioned, that front UI technologies are really wide, and you have to learn a lot of things. So I think the best way to actually learn a lot of UI technologies, or maybe just the UI concepts in general, is to do the development and get your hands dirty onto development. For me personally, I think I've ran away from DSA for a long time. Actually, I wasn't good at DSA in my college time, and trust me, I got away with a lot of DSA exams using a couple of aids, like a smartwatch for that example. So
Oh,
so yeah, not advising anyone to do that, but that was my love hate relationship with the DSA. But later down the line, I realized that yes, DSA is actually important as an engineer as well, but to an extent you do not need to go around and just do all of the questions on the lead code and the GF geeks for that matter. There's a level and there's a point to which you need to learn, and for that I would like to share my screen again, and we can
yes,
get
sir, please.
there. All right, just let me know once my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
All right, so how much DSA for UI engineers? I would say linked list is pretty obvious. You should know that. Strings and arrays goes without saying, because as a front end
These
engineer,
are the
we are.
basics.
Sorry.
The basics, the
Yes,
strings and the
exactly.
arrays.
Yes, strings and arrays again goes without saying, because as in front end engineer also you are manipulating a lot of strings and arrays in runtime. Whether you are playing with the data which is to be displayed on the web for that matter. So very important to know. Trees, I would say it's quite debatable, but my analogy for enforcing front-end engineers to know tree is key. DOM itself, the document object model, your web page itself is a tree, so something to know. And so this is the reason I really suggest everyone to actually learn trees as a front-end engineer. Heaps, again, not jumping into depth of it, but you should know the concept behind that, how heaps work. Only reason I'm attributing this is the browser allocates memory in the heap itself, so you should know how a browser works. So in order for that, you should know heaps. Hash maps are your objects in JavaScript. So objects, as we know that everything is an object in JavaScript, so goes without saying that that's good to know. Graphs, I would say really basic. Just knowing that these algorithms exist, not even getting into complex graph questions on the lead code, the hard lead code hards and medium ones. I wouldn't say I recommend that to anyone. And dynamic programming, to a very basic extent, I would say memoization being a very important topic as a front end engineer. So that is enough DSA to get away with as a front end engineer. And for that, if anyone is looking out to actually begin learning DSA as a front end engineer, there's a very good course on Udemy, JavaScript algorithms and data structures masterclass. uh, Again, you can find the link for the course on my Notion link that I've shared. So I've listed down this course over there. Also for the practice, you can go ahead and shoot some problems on the lead code. I will say begin with the easy problems first. And yeah, tutorials from YouTube can come in very handy, because a lot of times you get stuck with the question and want to know the actual rationale behind actually solving a problem. When you are getting started, it's very obvious that you have to watch a couple of tutorials as well for solving questions, and that's completely okay as a front end engineer, I would say. All
Okay,
right.
sir. So now
Yes.
there's one more question that we all have. So how to keep up with data structures and algorithms while doing development? Like, so personally, I sit for 2 hours and
Hmm.
मेरे ब्राउजर पे इतना सा चेंज होता है 2 घंटे बैठने के बाद भी. So since web development is so exhaustive, it's so time taking. How to balance both? Because we know that DSA is also equally important.
Right, right. Definitely agree with you on this one. That is why I actually like the concept behind atomic habits. So what I mean by atomic habits is key, you have to just do a little bit of everything every single day, and that compounds over the time. So initially, when you will get started, again, I will share my screen. I have a couple of game planners for which I followed. So let me know if my screen is visible. I can explain. Are we good to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, so I would say ki inculcating the atomic habits is the key, because you have to go through a lot of context switching, because DSA and development are quite extreme, because there are totally unrelated topics in data structure algorithm when you go ahead and solve that. But what you can do is to actually do a little bit of everything every single day. So for that matter, what you can do is to maybe just watch a couple of tutorials on Udemy for learning JavaScript. So that attributes to your development side of things, and then you can go ahead and solve one question a day on lead code or maybe geeks for geeks. So that is my approach of going ahead and mixing and matching things. So I do have a 5 week plan as well. So week one you can go ahead and do these things. Week two you can again go ahead and watch a couple of tutorials on DSA, and maybe watch a couple of tutorials on React if you are getting started. Week three, what you can do is solve maybe more problems on lead code, and you can give a little bit of time on to learning some JavaScript concepts. Week four, what you can do, maybe develop an app, maybe get started with your side project which you always wanted to do, and maybe focus a little bit less on the data structure algorithm side of things. So maybe just do one or two problems in a week. So that is how you can do. And week five, again, you can maybe go through some advanced JavaScript topics, and maybe just solve 5 6 problems. So it's all about balance. And in a long term, I think if you follow these plans, things will slowly add up, and you will realize that you can actually keep up with both, best of both worlds. Yep.
Yes, that's very important. So, if you could share that slide with our audience, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. I'll be sharing my presentation deck as well. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, we have seen an inclination in students towards other technologies like data science, ML, cloud. Does web development still command that respect? Is it still in that league?
Yes, That's a good question actually, because as an engineer, it's really important to adapt as well. And in a very basic terms, I would say ki, everyone should know what being an engineer means. Engineering is all about solving problems. So that could be anything. That could be maybe just front end and web technology related. That could be your AI ML as well. So I don't actually see this happening in a long run. So what happens is ki, once you realize what being an engineer means, you will actually keep aside all of these micro topics and actually start solving problems. So if let's say you have X problem which actually requires some amount of web development, that also requires some amount of science work as well. So you shouldn't restrict yourself. Number one, you shouldn't be restricting yourself to actually just do the website of things and not actually explore the AI ML domain for that matter. But at the same time, it's not recommended for anyone to actually just straight on to jump into data science or maybe AI without actually learning the basics. So I think basics over anything else, as I quoted. So basics should be the forefront of your domain. And once you are very pretty much confident with your domain, you can go ahead and explore other domains for sure. And talking about is it still in the league, I would say yes. Web development and front engineering is there to last, because front end apps itself, the ecosystem has changed a lot in 10 years down the line. Because 10 years ago we did not have a lot of capabilities on the web browser front, neither on the front end framework front as well. So now we things have evolved and we have more capability, and our front end applications are getting more and more complex. So I wouldn't say that it's a really easy deal to be a front end engineer. There's a lot of people have this misconception that front end is very easy, but I would say front end is equally complex, and we do have a lot of limitations as well, which could be analogous to what a backend engineer has to deal with. So yeah, I truly respect this domain as well. And being an engineer, if I talk about my work here at Flipkart, so we are not restricted to actually doing just the front end engineering. So we do have folks who are actually solving problems on AI front as well. They are also solving problems using machine learning as well, and they are for the sake of title, they are just UI engineers. But for that matter, for us, it means that we are an engineer over anything else. So yeah.
Yes, that's a very good point, sir. So, since there are various tools for creating websites like WordPress, what, in your opinion, is the future of web development? Are we replaceable?
Talking about replacement, we replaceable? Let's keep that point aside for a little bit of time, because that is quite debatable. But yes, if we talk about the technologies, what are my opinions on future of web technology? I think the front end ecosystem is very much driven by these abstractions like Angular and React and Vue.js. So these frameworks are here to last, I think, and they are actually coming in very handy for solving really complex use cases. So if I tell you about our Flipkart application, so that entire thing is actually powered by React in general. So we do have React Native actually. So if we drive into complexity, so it's able to solve a lot of complex problems out of the box. So front end frameworks and libraries are here to last. Number one. If you talk about WordPress, no, I wouldn't recommend anyone to learn WordPress in 2022. But yes, if we talk about front end technologies, again, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, one front end framework, either could be Angular or could be React. And
Right.
that, that is itself pretty much enough to actually get started in and landing a job of your choice.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
And getting
So
into the
now,
debate, just one second,
yes, sir.
getting into the debate, if we are replaceable or not. So we do,
Okay, let's miss that one.
for myself, I have explored actually the GitHub Copilot, and I found it really, that was very really exciting actually, and I was very surprised to find that it was able to write really good code and actually able to solve the problem. But if I tell you one thing that it's not able to do is to actually think of the solution, which only our brains can do. That is to actually develop a solution which can scale well for your future use cases as well. So developing an application is only one side of one aspect of the things. The other is actually developing an application which can last for your future use cases as well, and that is something I haven't seen AI to be able to do right now. So I think we are not replaceable, for that is for sure.
Thank you, sir. So now we'll be taking questions from our audience.
Sure. Do we have any questions over here? All right. If you
So,
don't
well,
have questions,
there's a question. There is
yeah.
a question from our one of our first year students that can you describe your day as a web developer? I know it's a little vague, it's big, but still, on
Uh-huh.
how is a engineer at Flipkart works? See, these are the dream companies: Flipkart, Amazon, Google. How do things work there? Like an
Yep, yep.
insight for students.
Mhm. So for us, I think the for me actually the very important aspect of all of this is the culture that a company is driving. So any organization essentially has a culture which it drives, and that actually dictates your entire experience of your day-to-day activities. So for us, it's fairly, I would say, nothing short of amazing, because we are not actually driven by I would say the product teams for that matter. We do have our say in actually developing a product here at Flipkart, and for us, it's a really stress-free environment. I usually get started with my day around 11 in the morning, and do attend a couple of meetings. Then I get involved in a couple of discussions for solving some business use cases, and probably spend only 1 2 hours on actually developing the solution, actually doing the implementation side of things. And apart from that, I think the entire culture, I think, is what I would advocate is the driver of any organization. So we do have really great culture. I do have very talented peers, and I get to learn a lot of things from them. And we do have a really supporting and understanding environment as well, in terms of work life balance as well. Really great, to say the least. And yes, there's a tremendous amount of learning as well that comes along with this kind of experience. So yeah, that is how it works.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this session, sir. So we have one more question. How much time does it take to become a full stack developer from scratch?
Okay. Well, I cannot actually like tell you that how much time it takes for a front full stack developer, because I myself I don't have enough experience, foundational experience onto backend technologies. But I can definitely tell you that 1 or 2 years is more than enough for getting started into front end engineering as such, because front end engineering itself is a very vast, and in order to actually be able to land a good internship or a good job, 1 year should be a achievable target for that. Yes.
All right. So do we have any more questions? Having done with the HTML, CSS, JS, and React basics, how do I proceed with my learning and making projects?
All right. Yeah. So yeah, when initially you are getting started for bringing all of these things together, I think the hardest step is to actually take the first step. So when you are actually getting started and building a project, let's say you have idea of creating a clone of Facebook. Let's say for that matter, you have initiated your repo and actually got started with starting with the project, but it can be quite intimidating at first because you have to recall all of the concepts that you have learned. And trust me, you might have to revisit some of the tutorials and videos that you have otherwise watched earlier. But yes, once you get started and actually get on hands-on coding, you will be able to, trust me, you will be able to actually recall and bring all of these things together. So yeah, how do I proceed with my learning and making project? I would say just go for it. Don't If you are pretty confident that yes, you have learned basics of HTML, CSS, JS, and React for that matter, yes, go ahead and start a project. Start any kind of project that you feel like is what you wanted to create.
So we have one more question from Piyush Singh. Are there many product companies that hire for front-end developer role? That's a really good question.
So couple of companies I haven't seen actually hiring for specifically front end engineer role. I think Google is one of those. So Google does have front end specific role as well. We call it as a UX engineer over there. But yes, apart from that, lot of companies are actually dedicatedly hiring front end resources, be it the Facebook, Meta. I've seen again, obviously, Flipkart hires, the Amazon hires for front end engineers. We do have Coinbase as well, one of the leading crypto startups. We do have Airbnb as well, the Atlassian as well. I've seen a lot of companies actually hire for front end engineer role, and LinkedIn as well. I think hires for UI engineers. So yeah, something to note.
So we have one more question from Sambhav Jain. What is better, React or Angular?
Hmm. There's no one sentence or one word answer to it. I think React and Angular are good in their own terms for different kinds of use cases. Once you actually learn maybe React and Angular, both of the frameworks, that is when you will start to respect both of the frameworks and libraries. So what happens is there are a couple of use cases where Angular fits in really well. And that, for example, I would say for enterprise use cases where you want the abstractions to be built to be inbuilt and not want to spend a lot of time to actually build the abstractions, Angular is a really good use case for that. And for a lot of applications wherein you want to get started and scale really fast, I would say React can be a really good use case for that. So yeah, totally respect both of the boundaries. And once you actually get to know now both of the frameworks, you would actually start respecting.
All right, sir. So I would like to say a big thank you from DSC GIT 128 that you could take out your time and educate us. We are really thankful. And for more updates, please join our Instagram and discount accounts. Link is in the description box.
All right, thank you so much for having me here, and happy to actually answer all of your queries, and hopefully my plan would help you to actually land your dream job for sure. And do hit me up on
Thank you.
LinkedIn if you have any queries. I am happy to help.